Hello, my name's Dixie Hayes, and 5 seconds before my sister punched me in the face in a luxury jewelry store, I thought my life was finally turning a corner. I'd saved for months, skipped meals, worked until my hands ached, and in one beautiful, brutal instant, everything I believed about family, pride, and worth shattered like glass beneath that chandelier. I was standing under the chandelier at Bellum Jewelry, watching the light fracture across the glass. For a moment, I thought I finally looked like I belonged there. My reflection glimmered in the display, soft edges, calm eyes. The clerk told me the total $2,950, and my pulse quickened in my throat. Months of work, of skipped meals and late nights, were about to condense into a single velvet box. Then the air split open. "What the hell are you doing here?" Velora's voice had that syrupy edge she used when she wanted to wound and look graceful doing it. Before I could turn, her hand connected with my face. An open, sharp hit that made the entire store gasp. The sound cracked like glass. For a second, I didn't feel pain. I felt heat and shame. People froze. The clerk's mouth opened, then shut again. No one moved. The room smelled of jasmine and metal. My skin stung, and all I could hear was my heartbeat. It wasn't the punch that broke me. It was realizing that, even here, in this bright, expensive place, I was still the family's embarrassment. Velora smirked, her lipstick flawless. "Don't make a scene, Dixie. It's just you and your little fantasies again." I wanted to answer, but my voice wouldn't move past my teeth. My cheek burned. A man's voice cut through the silence. "Touch my wife again," he said, steady and low, "and you'll see what happens." Every head turned. He stood by the door, tall, sharply dressed, gray eyes locked on Velora. I didn't know him, but in that instant, his presence filled the room with something fierce and certain. Velora stumbled over her words. She's my sister." He didn't blink. "Then you should know better." The clerk looked at me, trembling hands still holding the earrings I had chosen, small diamonds, nothing flashy, just enough to feel like proof I existed. "Ms. Hayes," she whispered, "would you like me to finish your purchase?" Velora's laugh was thin and cold. "Don't bother. She can't afford it." I straightened my back. "I can." She scoffed. "With what?" "Your little freelance jobs." I met her eyes. "With my work, my money, my life." My throat trembled as I said it. Months of exhaustion, of saving every spare dollar, pressed behind those words. The man, Ronan, I learned later, didn't say another thing. He only nodded at the clerk, who finished the sale as if performing a delicate surgery. The velvet box slid across the counter toward me. I held it like something sacred, because to me it was. Velora stormed out, her heels echoing on the marble floor. The store slowly breathed again. The music, which had stopped without anyone noticing, began to hum. The clerk avoided my eyes, pretending to polish a case. I thanked her anyway and left. Outside, the air was heavy with heat. My cheeks still burned, but the world looked strangely bright. Someone had stood up for me, even if by mistake. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't completely alone. That night, the kitchen smelled of coffee and citrus cleaner. I set the velvet box on the counter while I changed clothes, trying to steady myself. The house was quiet. Odlin and Velora were out, probably celebrating the way people do when they've won something small and mean. When I came back, the box was gone. I searched the counter, the drawers, even the floor. Nothing. Then I saw it, half buried in the trash can next to a bruised peach and a soggy paper towel. Coffee had soaked through the velvet, dark and sticky. I stared at it. My chest went hollow. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I picked it up, rinsed the box under the tap, wiped it clean, and opened it. The earrings still caught the light, dimmer now, but alive. I held them in my palm, the water dripping between my fingers. Velora's voice echoed in my head. Trash. Maybe that was her favorite word, because it excused everything she threw away. I walked upstairs, slow, steady, every step a promise I didn't understand yet. I laid the earrings on my nightstand beside a photo of my mother. The picture was fading, the edges curling, but her eyes still had that same patient sadness I'd inherited. I touched the bruise forming on my cheek, the skin warm under my fingers. It didn't hurt as much now, maybe because the ache had moved somewhere deeper. Lying in bed, I held the velvet box against my chest. The faint smell of coffee clung to it, a stain that wouldn't wash away, a reminder that beauty and ruin often came in the same moment. I wasn't trying to take her spotlight. I whispered into the dark. I just wanted something that was mine. The words settled in the air like dust. That's where it all started. Morning light slipped through the blinds when I woke, thin and cautious, like it knew better than to touch me. I could still smell the faint trace of coffee on the velvet box lying beside me. The bruise on my cheek had turned the color of faded lilacs. I didn't need a mirror to know what I looked like. Shame always has a way of showing itself. By late afternoon, I was standing outside my parents' house, holding the same velvet box in my bag. Odlin's birthday dinner. I'd ordered the cake, bought the flowers, and told myself that showing up was the right thing to do. Family duty, not affection. The porch light flickered, even though the sun hadn't set. The second I walked in, I felt it, the rearrangement of everything familiar. The walls gleamed with new paint. The air smelled of lemon polish and artificial roses. And there, beside the staircase, hung a massive framed photo. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Everyone was in it. My father, Odlin, Velora. Their smiles coordinated, their hands linked like they'd rehearsed it. And me, I wasn't there. I moved closer, searching for some explanation. Maybe they took it when I was out of town. Maybe they forgot to invite me. But the background was unmistakable. It was the backyard barbecue last month. I'd been there. I'd taken the photo. My heart thudded once, heavy and slow. Odlin's voice drifted from the kitchen. Sweetheart, close the door. You're letting the cool air out. I turned away from the frame and did as told, my hands shaking against the knob. Looking back now, I should have seen it coming. Dinner was already set, the table glittering with silverware I'd never seen them use before. Velora sat at the head of the table as if the position had always been hers. She flashed me that practiced smile, bright enough for guests, dull enough for me. Glad you could make it, she said. You look better. Odlin's eyes moved over my bruise, and then away, quick as a blink. Family disagrees sometimes, she murmured. Let's not dwell. Dad coughed into his napkin. He hadn't met my eyes once. He didn't need to. Silence was his signature. The meal passed in fragments. Laughter that didn't include me, stories I wasn't part of. I kept my face still and polite, my fork tracing circles on an untouched plate. Every word felt rehearsed, every glance another reminder of my role. Background noise, necessary but never noticed. When the cake finally arrived, I straightened a little. I'd ordered it 3 days ago, picked chocolate mousse because it was Odlin's favorite. I'd spent an hour decorating the box with ribbons. It was the one gesture I thought no one could twist. Velora lifted the lid. "Oh, that's sweet," she said. The cake read, "Happy birthday, Velora." My stomach flipped. Odlin clasped her hands, glowing. "Darling, how thoughtful of you. I had no idea you'd planned something." Velora raised her glass toward me, eyes glittering with quiet triumph. "Mom deserves to celebrate," she said. "We all do." For a heartbeat, I wanted to laugh. The sound that came out was more like a breath caught wrong. "Actually, Odlin interrupted, that soft reprimand honed over years. "Let's not make a scene, Dixie. It's Mother's Day after all." There it was again. Scene. As if I'd walked in with a script and a spotlight. So I smiled. That polite, frozen smile women learn when they've been told they're too emotional to be believed. I watched them cut the cake, the knife gliding through frosting like it was slicing through me. The taste of sugar hit the air. The scent made me dizzy. I excused myself, saying I needed water. No one stopped me. In the hallway, I stood before the portrait again. The three of them looked perfect, flawless, balanced, complete. Without me, the image made sense. I reached up and touched the glass. It was cold. For a second, my reflection merged with theirs like a ghost hovering over a life I used to have. Then I pulled the frame from the wall. The nail squealed against the plaster. I didn't drop it or smash it, though part of me wanted to. I simply turned it around and leaned it backward, so the photo faced the wall. If I didn't belong in it, it didn't deserve to look at me. The hum of their laughter floated from the dining room, warm and distant. I stood there, hearing it fade behind the walls. My fingers still carried the smell of coffee and frosting, bitterness and sweetness pressed together. I thought of the earrings upstairs, cleaned but stained, waiting like witnesses. I thought of my mother's picture on my nightstand, her eyes patient and sad. I whispered, "They erased me once. Let's see how many times they'll have to do it before I disappear." I didn't know what was waiting for me next. I stayed up most of the night, pretending to read, though my eyes never moved past the same line. When morning came, the sun was already too bright, forcing its way through the thin blinds of my studio apartment. My head throbbed. I hadn't eaten. I hadn't wanted to. The phone buzzed beside me, flashing Velora's name. A picture notification, her at brunch with Odlin and Dad. Mimosas clinking, smiles polished. The caption read, "Family time. Nothing like Sundays together." The post was tagged to a group chat I used to be in, the fam. Only this time, I couldn't find it. I scrolled through my list of chats, once, twice, 3 times. It wasn't there. I thought maybe I deleted it by mistake, so I searched for my own messages. The results were blank, deleted, vanished. I wasn't part of the fam anymore. I stared at the screen, the blue glow painting my fingers pale. I was family enough to buy the cake. I whispered, not family enough to get the picture. That realization sank slowly like ink in water. A second buzz, this one from the bank app. 2 new charges flagged as unusual activity. one from Velora's Vanity Lounge and another from Maison du Satin. Both posted that morning, both charged to my card. The one I shared with Odlin years ago when she'd said, "Will help you build credit, sweetheart." I hadn't thought about that account in months. I barely used it now, keeping it open out of habit, the way people keep a scar just to prove something once hurt. The transactions weren't small. I felt my pulse hammering as I stared at the numbers. I dialed the bank. The woman on the other end spoke kindly, but her tone sharpened when she pulled up my file. "Yes, Miss Hayes. The secondary user made the purchases. Authorized access. You'd have to revoke it manually." "Secondary user?" I asked. "Yes, a Miss Velora Dane. Added by your mother, Mrs. Odlin Dane Hayes." The air in my apartment turned thick. "So they can use my account?" "They can," she said, "until you remove them." When the call ended, I sat motionless. It wasn't the money, it was the ease. The quiet certainty that I wouldn't notice, that I wouldn't dare question it. I opened the closet and pulled out my printer. 3 sheets of white paper curled as they came through, each transaction highlighted in yellow. Date, time, location, the proof of theft hiding behind family etiquette. My heart thudded with something new, not fear, not humiliation, something closer to clarity. They counted on my silence. They built their peace on it. I ran a fingertip over the highlighted charges, my name embossed on every page. I almost laughed. They didn't think I'd notice, so I'll make it impossible for them to ignore. I took out an envelope, the kind used for holiday cards, cream-colored and thin. I wrote, "Odlin" across the front, steady, deliberate letters. My hand didn't shake. Looking back now, I realized that was the first real act of defiance I'd ever committed. I wasn't shouting or accusing. I was documenting. I made copies of everything, digital and paper, one for me, one for the bank, one for whoever needed to see it later. Evidence. Facts. The sound of the printer hummed low, rhythmic, steadying. My apartment smelled faintly of ink and cold coffee. For a moment, I felt almost powerful. Then my phone lit up again. This time it was a message, not from Velora, but from Dad. "Mom says you've been overreacting lately. Let's just keep peace in the house. We don't need drama." The words hit harder than I expected. Peace in the house. That was Odlin's favorite phrase, her shield for every injustice. I typed back, but didn't send it. Peace built on silence isn't peace. It's surrender. Instead, I closed the message and saved it to drafts. A habit now, keeping proof even of words I never spoke. I stacked the printed pages neatly on the kitchen table, aligning the corners like evidence in a courtroom. The sound of paper against wood was louder than it should have been. My reflection glimmered faintly on the glass tabletop. I didn't recognize her. The woman staring back with circles under her eyes and a bruise that had turned to dull gold. But she looked awake. For the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt measured, intentional. When I sealed the envelope, pressing down the flap with the edge of my palm, I imagined Odlin's face when she saw it. She'd smile, polite and sweet, pretend confusion. "Oh, darling, there must be some mistake." But this time, I'd have paper instead of pain. I placed the envelope by the door, ready for delivery, and poured myself another cup of coffee. The taste was bitter, but it steadied me. Outside, the world continued its quiet spin. Cars passing, laughter faint in the distance. None of them knew the war being drafted in a small apartment off Telfair Street. I leaned against the counter, staring at the faint reflection of my mother's old photo on the fridge, its edges curling. They built their peace on my silence. I said, "Now it's my turn." I didn't realize it then, but that moment changed everything. The following week felt strange, too quiet, like the air itself was waiting for something to happen. I worked through the weekend, finishing design drafts for the Cyber-Retain launch. Ronan had asked me to help refine the visual flow. Nothing official, he'd said, just a second pair of eyes I can trust. It felt good, being needed for my skill, not my last name. That morning, I ironed my navy dress, tied my hair back, and drove across town to the conference center. I wanted to believe I belonged there, even if I was technically just a guest. Backstage smelled like new paint and nerves. Screens flickered, cables snaked across the floor, and the hum of expensive lighting filled the air. The staff moved briskly, headsets pressed to their ears. I stood near the edge of the curtain as the lights dimmed. The promo video began. I knew every frame, the soft gradients, the transitions timed to the music, the way the color palette shifted from gray to deep blue. Those were mine. I had built the rhythm of that sequence pixel by pixel. But when the credits rolled, my name wasn't there. Designer, anonymous contributor. A strange heat spread across my chest. My throat tightened, not from sickness, but from that old familiar ache of being erased. I tried to steady my breathing as applause filled the room. "Beautiful work," someone whispered behind me. "Flawless presentation." I didn't answer. I just kept watching as the crowd stood, clapping for something I had created but couldn't claim. Velora appeared moments later, floating through the backstage chaos in a white blazer and pearl earrings. She'd never worked a day in design, but she looked like she owned the stage. She smiled at me the way people smile at furniture, acknowledging its existence without caring who made it. "You made it," she said lightly. "Ronan mentioned you might stop by." "I helped build that video," I said quietly. Her eyes flickered. "Oh, right, you gave a few notes." But Ronan wanted clean branding. Too many credits just clutter the message. "You know?" "You mean your name," I replied, "or no name at all?" She tilted her head, that polished smirk never faltering. "You're too sensitive, Dixie. It's business, not personal. Don't make it something it's not." There it was again, her favorite defense. Don't make it something it's not. As if the problem wasn't theft, but my ability to feel it. During the cocktail hour, I found a quiet corner near the catering table and opened my laptop. The company's internal folder was accessible through the guest Wi-Fi. I searched for the design files. Mine, the originals. The metadata had changed. Created by marketing team. Modified by Velora Dane. The date stamp was from 3 days ago. I swallowed hard. For a moment, I considered walking out, pretending it didn't matter. That was what they expected of me. To stay muted in real life, like I had no claim to the world I helped build. But my hands were steady when I copied the folder. I backed it up to an encrypted drive, checked the timestamps twice, then uploaded it to my private cloud. Version tracked. Secure. In the description box, I typed, "Original work by Dixie Hayes," before it was erased. The words glowed on the screen like something alive. Ronan found me a little later, standing by the window overlooking the river. "You all right?" he asked, handing me a glass of water. "I'm fine." My voice sounded foreign, too calm. "The rollout went well," he said. "People are already talking about it." "I noticed," I murmured. He studied me, concern edging his tone. "Did something happen?" I almost told him, but then Velora walked by, laughing with two investors. Ronan's attention followed her briefly before returning to me. "She's got away with people," he said. "She's got away with other people's work," I corrected softly. He blinked, uncertain whether I meant it as a joke. I didn't clarify. Some truths didn't need explanation. Looking back now, I should have realized that moment marked another small shift, the point where disappointment stopped being a feeling and became a strategy. The night stretched long after the event ended. I drove home in silence, the lights of downtown blurring into a smear of gold and gray. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. Every song on the radio sounded hollow. At home, I set the laptop on my desk and opened the uploaded files one more time. Proof. My work, untouched, time-stamped. The evidence sat there quietly waiting. For once, I didn't cry. I didn't need to. The anger had cooled into something sharper, resolve. They'd taken my name before, my credit, my place in photographs, and memories. But this time, I had a record, a digital trail they couldn't paint over or crop out. I sat back in my chair and looked around the small apartment. Everything was quiet except for the hum of the computer fan. This time, I said aloud, "I won't just prove I was there. I'll prove what they did to me." My finger hovered over the share button, trembling slightly, not from fear, but from power contained. I didn't press it. Not yet. That's where it all started. The week after the launch passed in a blur of polite applause and unanswered messages. Ronan's event trended online for 3 days, every clip tagged with Velora's name. My designs, my ideas were reposted everywhere. And still, my name never appeared. I didn't press share. Not yet. There's a kind of power in waiting, in letting the truth simmer just long enough for people to grow comfortable in their lies. Then came the invitation, Odlin's annual charity gala. Family attendance expected, the text read. I almost laughed. Family attendance. That phrase had stopped meaning anything to me. Still, I went. Sometimes, to expose hypocrisy, you have to walk straight into it. The ballroom gleamed under crystal chandeliers, tables draped in ivory linen, gold place cards. I wore the forest green silk dress I had made myself, the one with the subtle embroidery around the neckline. It fit like it had been stitched from resolve. Velora had borrowed it 2 weeks ago for a photo shoot. She promised to return it dry cleaned. She hadn't mentioned that she planned to wear it on stage tonight. When I saw her step up to the microphone in my dress, smiling under the soft spotlight, the air went thin. Please welcome our honoree for her contribution to women in PR, Velora Dane. Applause filled the room. Flashbulbs sparked. The dress shimmered under the lights. When I gave her that dress, I didn't think she'd wear it like armor in a battle she knew I was never invited to fight. I stood near the back, clapping just enough to blend in. My father nodded politely from a nearby table, Odlin glowing beside him. Every look between them was rehearsed perfection. Odlin caught my eye and motioned me over with that practiced warmth. Darling, could you help refill the champagne flutes? The servers are swamped. Her voice was velvet over steel. I recognized the trick. She wanted to put me back in my place, quietly, publicly, gracefully. So I took the tray. As I moved through the crowd, silver and glass clinking in rhythm, I heard someone whisper to Odlin, "She part of the staff?" Odlin laughed lightly. "She's family," she said, "but she's humble." The laughter that followed was soft, indulgent, polite. I placed a glass on a nearby table a bit too firmly. Champagne sloshed over the rim. No one noticed, but my hand clenched until the metal edge of the tray bit my palm. Looking back now, I should have seen the irony. I wasn't being erased anymore. I was being reassigned. Velora's speech rolled on about empowerment and uplifting women, her voice syrup sweet. Every sentence felt like theft disguised as inspiration. I wondered how many people in the room believed her. Most probably. People love a good illusion if it comes wrapped in confidence. I slipped away to the catering prep area. The hum of the industrial fridge drowned out the applause. I set the tray down and leaned against the counter, breathing through the noise in my head. Pulling out my phone, I opened the cloud drive. My files glowed back at me. The video, the screenshots, the design proofs, every piece of evidence I'd stored. I began creating a timeline, cross-referencing each date with project notes and text messages. Line by line, the pattern became clear. The theft wasn't accidental. It was systematic. Not for vengeance. I told myself. For clarity. The truth needed order. People respect paper more than pain. I saved the document under a new name. Proof Phase 1. A shadow crossed the doorway. It was Thaddeus holding a drink. He looked older than I remembered. His eyes lingered on the tray behind me, then on the phone in my hand. "Your mother worries you're taking things too seriously," he said quietly. I met his gaze. "That's because she's never had anything taken from her." He sighed, the sound of a man used to choosing comfort over courage. "She means well, Dixie. We all do." I almost laughed. Meaning well is just a nicer way of doing nothing. He hesitated. "You shouldn't provoke your sister. She's trying to build something." "So am I said. He looked away. "Don't make this a scene." There it was again, that word, scene. As if the real scandal wasn't what they'd done, but my refusal to stay quiet about it. I turned back to my phone. "I'm not making a scene," I said softly. "I'm making a record." Velora's laughter drifted from the ballroom, high and effortless. When I peeked through the door, she was hugging Odlin on stage, posing for cameras. My father clapped. Reporters scribbled notes. The plaque gleamed under the lights, engraved with her name. No one ever thanked me for the silence that made their applause possible. As the event wound down, guests began leaving with their gift bags and leftover smiles. I returned the tray to the kitchen, grabbed my coat, and slipped out the side door into the crisp night air. The city lights shimmered on the river. I breathed in the cool air, my lungs raw but steady. Somewhere inside, I felt a line shift, the quiet fracture that happens right before steel hardens. They thought I'd stay quiet forever, that my decency was permanent, my endurance infinite. They were wrong. Driving home, I replayed the night in my head. Every comment, every laugh, every time they'd used the word family like a leash. I realized I'd never need their permission again, not to create, not to speak, not even to exist. Back in my apartment, I set my phone on the desk and opened the document again. Proof, phase 1. I added one more line at the bottom. If they want peace, they'll have to earn it this time. The cursor blinked at me, waiting. I saved the file, then looked out the window at the quiet street below. They think I'm still the silent one. I whispered. Let them think that. I didn't know what was waiting for me next. The rain started early that morning, soft at first, then steadier as the day went on. I watched it from my car, parked in front of the old house. The same shutters I'd painted years ago were still chipped around the edges, the green fading into gray. Odlin had called the night before, all politeness and obligation. We're clearing the attic this weekend. She'd said, you should come help. There might be things you want to keep. There were things I wanted, all right, but not what she meant. The attic smelled like cedar and dust, like time holding its breath. I hadn't been up there since I was a teenager. The wooden stairs creaked beneath me, every sound sharp against the quiet house. Outside, thunder rolled low and distant. Boxes lined the walls, labeled in Odlin's perfect handwriting, seasonal decor, family records, Velora's college keepsakes. My name didn't appear on a single box. I should have been used to that by now. I told myself I was there to help, to be civil, but that wasn't true. I was searching for what I didn't fully know, maybe proof that my memory wasn't lying, that once upon a time I belonged here. In the corner, half buried under a stack of old linens, was a worn leather-bound poetry book. My grandfather Merrick's favorite. I recognized it immediately. He'd read from it every summer by the lake house window, his voice soft but firm. I picked it up carefully. The spine cracked slightly when I opened it. A sealed envelope slipped out and landed on the floor. My name was written across it in his bold, familiar handwriting, Dixie. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I broke the seal and unfolded the yellowed pages inside. The faint smell of tobacco and mothballs rose with the dust. His words were faded but legible. You were always the one who asked nothing and gave everything. I sank to the floor, the letter trembling in my hands. I read it again and again until the words blurred into shapes of love I hadn't felt in years. There was something else inside the envelope, a small cassette tape, the label written in the same hand. For Dixie. My heart stumbled. I found an old player in one of the nearby boxes, a relic with cracked buttons. It took 3 tries before it hummed to life. Then his voice. Rough, familiar, steady. I want her to have the lake house. He said, she's earned it, and I know the others will protest, but this is mine to give. My breath caught. The static between his sentences filled the silence like an accusation. I pressed my hand over my mouth, afraid of making a sound that would shatter the moment. Odlin had told me the estate was never meant for me. She'd said the paperwork was clear, that Grandpa changed his mind. But hearing his voice, his will, there was no room left for doubt. It hadn't been confusion. It had been suppression. I remembered that summer by the lake, my hands raw from painting the shutters while everyone else lounged inside. I'd done it for him. He'd stood by the window, watching. When I'd finished, he'd said, "You've got steady hands, kiddo. That's rare." I never realized he'd meant more than the paint. Looking back now, I should have seen how neatly Odlin rewrote the story after he died. She'd hosted the funeral, organized the estate, spoken about family unity and gratitude. Idenudda num. I didn't know she'd already sealed my grandfather's words away in a box labeled irrelevant. The anger that rose in me wasn't loud. It was precise, clean, controlled. I didn't shout. I didn't throw the tape. I turned my fury into focus. I carried the letter and the cassette downstairs, wrapped them in a towel, and drove home. The rain had turned into a downpour by then, the kind that blurs everything outside the windshield into streaks of silver. At my apartment, I scanned the letter, every crease and fold, making digital copies in triplicate. I converted the cassette to an audio file, naming it merrickwill_original.wave. The voice that had been silenced for years now existed in 3 different clouds, 2 hard drives, and 1 encrypted folder labeled Truth Original Source. For once, I felt safe, not because the world had changed, but because the evidence existed outside of me. Then I made a copy of the tape, slipped it into a new envelope, and wrote across the front, in red ink, to be opened if I'm erased again. I tucked it inside the drawer under my desk. I sat back, listening to the steady patter of rain against the window. The sound reminded me of that summer at the lake house, of paint dripping from brushes, of how the world can wash over everything but still leave a stain. For years, I'd been told I was dramatic, too emotional, too attached to things that didn't matter. But I was right to care. I was right to remember. They had buried his voice. Now, I would make sure the world heard it. I didn't know what would happen when I pressed play again. I didn't know how Odelin would react when I confronted her. But I knew one thing for certain. This was the beginning of the end of their version of the truth. And for the first time in my life, that thought didn't scare me. It steadied me. That's where it all started. The first alert came just after sunrise. My phone lit up like it was on fire. Calls, texts, notifications stacking faster than I could swipe them away. I thought for one foolish second that maybe Ronan's company had released my designs under my name at last. But the first message I opened killed that thought instantly. Have you seen the news? I hadn't. Until that moment. PR Queen Velora accuses sister of fabricating relationship with tech billionaire. My name was everywhere, in bold letters, on gossip sites that thrived on scandal. Screenshots, fake text messages, edited photos. There I was, laughing next to Ronan in a picture I never took. One photo even had his hand over mine, an image so obviously manipulated that anyone who knew me would have recognized it. But the world didn't know me. The world only knew what it was told. They didn't just want to erase me. I whispered into the empty apartment. They wanted to turn me into the villain of my own story. The phone buzzed again. Comments rolled in, accusations of stalking, obsession, manipulation. People I'd never met dissected my character like it was a public document. My pulse drummed in my ears as I opened my inbox. Ronan's PR manager had sent a short statement. These rumors are baseless. Mr. Keene has worked with Ms. Hayes in a strictly professional capacity. It should have helped. It didn't. The damage was already spreading. Ronan's silence felt louder than his defense. Velora knew exactly how to play this game. She'd built her entire career on perception. I tried to breathe, but the air in the room felt chemical, sharp. I opened my laptop and checked my sent mail. The latest message shown under my name was one I hadn't written. You'll regret crossing me. I made you look good. Forwarded from my account. I searched the trash folder. There it was, forwarded as me. Velora had done it again. My password had probably been saved on a shared device years ago. She'd always been good with charm and passwords, the kind of access people hand over without thinking. I called Ronan. He picked up on the second ring, his voice measured, the kind of calm that hides confusion. "Dixie," he said, "I've seen what's happening." "Then you know it's fake." "I do," he replied. "But this isn't about truth anymore. It's about volume." "Volume?" "The one who shouts loudest gets believed," he said quietly. I closed my eyes. "Then I'll make the truth louder." He was silent for a beat. That might not be safe. I stopped caring about safe. I hung up before he could respond. Looking back now, I should have known Velora wouldn't stop until she'd burned my name down to ashes. It wasn't enough that she had my work. She wanted my reputation, too. I went to my computer and began uploading everything, the time-stamped design files, the unedited footage from the conference, the audio of my grandfather's will. One by one, they formed a chain of truth she couldn't cut through. When I finished, I opened a blank post. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling not from fear, but from the realization that I was about to become visible on my own terms. I wrote, "I don't owe anyone a spotlight, but I deserve not to be burned by someone else's." I attached the proof. The post went live. Within minutes, it exploded. Retweets, shares, threads debating every pixel of every file. Some believed me instantly. Others called it desperate. But I didn't care. I had stepped out of their shadow. By afternoon, mainstream outlets were picking it up. New evidence emerges in Hayes' family dispute. My voice, my proof, my truth, finally echoing louder than her lies. Velora responded with her signature charm. A live interview, perfect lighting, white dress, crocodile tears. "I just don't understand why she's doing this," she said softly. "She's jealous. She's always been the jealous one." My chest tightened. For years, that word had been her weapon, jealous. She used it to cover every cruelty, to turn sympathy away from me. But this time, the narrative was cracking. I could see it in the live comment feed, flooding the screen. Something doesn't add up. The files look legit. The interview host pressed on. "So you're saying your sister forged this evidence?" Velora smiled. That camera-perfect smile that used to fool everyone. "I'm saying she needs help." I didn't realize it then, but that moment changed everything. Because just as she said it, another live feed appeared in the corner of the broadcast. Ronan, unexpected, uninvited, joining the call. The studio fell silent. He leaned forward, his voice calm but edged with steel. "That's interesting," he said, "because I have the original message. And it wasn't Dixie's." The host blinked. "You're saying you can verify?" "I can," Ronan interrupted. "I know exactly who sent it." The camera cut to Velora. For the first time, she didn't smile. Her throat bobbed once, twice. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was accountability catching up. The host turned back to the camera, her voice low. "Well, there you have it." I sat in my apartment, the screen's blue light flickering against the walls, feeling my heartbeat slow for the first time all day. They'd tried to erase me with lies, but the truth had a pulse of its own, and tonight it was louder than both of us. That's where it all started. 2 weeks after the interview, the invitations for the Hayes Foundation Gala arrived. Everyone's names gleamed in silver foil. Velora's at the top, Odlin and Thaddeus listed as founders and patrons. I scrolled the online registry twice. My name wasn't there. I didn't need an invitation. Not anymore. The night of the gala, I stood in front of my mirror, fastening the diamond earrings, the same ones Velora once threw into the trash. They caught the light as I turned my head, tiny sparks reflecting in my eyes. I slipped into a black velvet gown, the fabric heavy and deliberate. If they wouldn't print my name, I would carve it into the air myself. The ballroom shimmered with money and pretense. Laughter carried across the glass chandeliers, brittle and controlled. I moved through the crowd slowly, feeling eyes follow me, some curious, some cautious. A few whispered. I didn't care. Odlin saw me first. Her face froze for a second before the smile clicked into place. "Dixie, darling," she said, voice sweet as saccharin. "You weren't on the list, were you?" "I noticed," I said. "That's never stopped me before." Her lips pressed together, a glimmer of irritation flashing before she recovered. "We've all had a difficult month. Let's not ruin tonight with old drama." Behind her, Velora stood near the stage, radiant in white, preparing for her speech. Cameras shifted toward her. She looked untouchable. "Family unity," Odlin said, laying a hand on my arm. "That's what this foundation is about." I looked down at her fingers, perfectly manicured, resting on my skin as if ownership came naturally. "Funny," I said. "Unity always seems to mean obedience around here." I stepped away before she could answer. The crowd applauded as Velora took the microphone. "Tonight," she began, voice polished, "we honor legacy, our family's dedication to community and truth." I almost laughed. Truth. Something in me steadied. Not rage, not adrenaline, clarity. I walked toward the stage, heels clicking against marble. The sound cut through the applause. Velora faltered mid-sentence, confusion flickering across her face. Odlin's expression tightened, her mouth forming a warning I ignored. "Excuse me," I said, my voice even. "I think we've skipped a few truths tonight." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I turned to the projection screen behind Velora and held up the remote. The first image appeared, the original time-stamped design files from Cyber-Attain. "These are mine," I said, created 6 months before they were credited to someone else. The second slide, bank statements showing unauthorized charges. These were taken from my account, the purchases made under my sister's name. Odlin's voice rose, brittle. "This is not the place." "It never was," I said. "You just never thought I'd have the microphone." Velora's composure cracked. "You're twisting things, Dixie," she hissed. "You've always been dramatic." The next slide appeared before she could continue, Grandpa Merrick's letter, scanned in high resolution. His handwriting filled the screen, the words glowing larger than life. "You were always the one who asked nothing and gave everything." Gasps scattered through the audience. And then the audio. His voice. "I want her to have the lake house. She's earned it." The room went still. Even the waitstaff froze mid-step. Odlin's color drained. "That recording, how did you—" "You locked it in a box," I said. "You buried his will just like you buried me." Velora turned toward Ronan, desperate. "You believe me, right? You saw how she obsesses." Ronan stepped forward, calm and steady, holding a printed document in his hand. "Actually," he said, voice carrying across the ballroom, "I have the original message you claim Dixie sent me He placed it on the podium. It wasn't hers. The audience stirred again. Whispers spread like static. A donor near the front leaned toward another guest. I always wondered how she got so far so fast. Another murmured, "That girl, Dixie? She's the one who did the work." Velora's jaw clenched. She glanced at Odlin, who looked suddenly small, her power dissolving under the weight of exposure. "Enough," Odlin said, voice trembling. "We are not airing family matters in public." "This isn't family," I said quietly. "This is accountability." Velora's eyes filled, but I recognized the performance. She'd cried her way out of consequences before. But not this time. I closed the folder. "You spent years teaching me that silence keeps peace. Tonight, I'm teaching you that silence also keeps lies alive." I turned to the audience. "So here's the truth. Every one of you donated tonight believing in integrity. Look at what your donations built. A family foundation built on deceit. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the projector's soft whirring. Then, slowly, someone began to clap. Another followed. The applause grew, not loud, but deliberate, like the sound of judgment finding its target. Velora's mask cracked. Odlin sank into her chair, eyes hollow. I stepped back from the microphone, the diamond earrings brushing my neck. Ronan met my gaze from the edge of the stage, silent approval in his eyes. I didn't need words. The truth was loud enough. As the noise died down, my father rose from his seat. For years, he'd been the quiet spectator, the man who kept peace by staying absent. Now, his hands shook as he reached for the microphone. "I should have spoken years ago," Thaddeus said, his voice breaking. "Dixie, I'm sorry." The room exhaled all at once. I looked at him, not with anger, but with understanding. Some apologies come too late to heal, but not too late to matter. That's where it all started. A month after the gala, the noise had finally faded. No reporters outside my building. No headlines twisting my words. Just quiet, the kind that feels heavy at first, then slowly becomes a friend. I stood by the window of my new apartment near the waterfront, watering a single-potted plant that barely clung to life. The skyline glowed faintly across the river, lights flickering like a heartbeat in the distance. I hadn't spoken to Odlin or Velora since that night. No texts, no calls, no family dinners. And for the first time in my life, the silence wasn't punishment. It was peace. Peace isn't what they promise me at family dinners, I said softly, watching the water darken the soil. It's this silence I chose and own. Some mornings, I still woke expecting chaos. Another lie, another message, another demand. But the only sound now was the faint hum of the fridge and the seagulls outside. My body, once tense for battle, was learning what calm felt like. A letter arrived that week, thick paper sealed with the Hayes Foundation emblem. I almost threw it away. Curiosity won. Inside was a formal apology. The board acknowledges an oversight in crediting your contributions. It was cold, precise, and hollow, but beneath it, tucked like an afterthought, was a smaller envelope in my father's handwriting. I don't expect forgiveness. It read, "But I want you to know, I see you now." I sat down at the kitchen table and read it twice. Then I folded it neatly and placed it in a drawer. I didn't write back, not out of anger, but because there was nothing left to fix. Looking back, I think that's what healing really is. choosing quiet over chaos, distance over explanation. That evening, as the sun melted into the water, there was a knock on my door. For a second, I thought it might be another journalist, or worse, Velora with another performance to deliver. But when I opened it, Ronan stood there, one hand holding a leash. Harlow, the old family dog, wagged his tail at my feet. "He kept coming to your room," Ronan said. Odlin finally gave in. I froze. She let him go. She didn't have much of a choice. He wouldn't eat unless he was in your room. I knelt, running my fingers through Harlow's fur. He pressed his head against my leg, sighing like he'd just finished waiting for me to come home. I hadn't realized how much I missed being needed without condition. Ronan stepped inside, glancing around the small apartment. "You've done well," he said. "It feels steady here." "I think that's what I was trying to build," I replied, something that didn't depend on their approval. He nodded, eyes soft. "You earned it." We didn't talk much after that. He stayed for a cup of tea, the kind of silence that feels full rather than empty stretching between us. When he left, I didn't feel the need to follow him to the door. I just watched as he and Harlow disappeared into the night air, then returned to sit by the window. Later that night, Harlow padded back inside, curled up beside the couch, and rested his head on my foot. I looked down at him, the weight of his loyalty settling over me. Even he knew who stayed when no one else did. I whispered. I didn't cry. The tears that used to come so easily had turned into something steadier, a quiet knowing that I had already survived the hardest parts. On the desk, my laptop glowed faintly. I opened the folder that once held every piece of evidence, the designs, the letters, the files they tried to erase. I scrolled through each document until I reached the newest one. I clicked Add File and uploaded a photo I'd taken that morning. Me standing by the window, the plant beside me, wearing the same forest green dress I'd made years ago. I wasn't posing. I was simply there, present, alive, unafraid. I named it Proof of Life. Looking back now, I realize how small that act was, yet how big it felt. I didn't need validation. I didn't need forgiveness. I needed evidence of myself, untouched, unedited, existing on my own terms. I uploaded the picture to my private drive, backed it up twice, and closed the laptop. The apartment fell into silence again, but this time it was the right kind. I leaned back in my chair, the faint sound of waves brushing against the shore below. I'm not the daughter they claimed. I whispered. I'm the woman I became in spite of them. Harlow sighed softly, his tail tapping once against the floor as if in agreement. Outside, the city lights shimmered, steady and forgiving. Sometimes the loudest strength is found in quiet choices, walking away, speaking only when it matters, reclaiming your name without needing their permission. Have you ever had to rebuild your worth in silence? Drop your story in the comments. I read every one. And if this story struck a chord, don't forget to subscribe. There's more truth where that came from.